Have you ever been dumped by someone who said you weren't enough? Have you ever heard words that cut deeper than any knife? Words that say you need to change, that you're no longer attractive, that they deserve better? And have you ever had the chance to see that same person come back, begging, crawling, pleading for a second chance after you've completely transformed? Because what you're about to hear isn't just a story about losing weight. It's a story about losing 140 pounds of fat and gaining something far more valuable: dignity, self-esteem, and the sweet taste of revenge served ice cold like a desert night in Arizona. This is Sarah Mitchell's story, and if you stay until the end, you'll understand why sometimes the best revenge isn't anger, but becoming so amazing that the person who left you realizes the treasure they lost. But before we continue, do one thing for me. Hit the like button right now. Seriously, stop and hit it. Because if you've ever been rejected, if you've ever felt invisible or not good enough, this like isn't just for me. It's for you too. It's a promise that you'll watch until the end and absorb every lesson from this story. And subscribe to the channel, because I bring real stories of transformation that will change the way you see your own challenges. Now let's get to the story that will touch every fiber of your being. Sarah Mitchell was 32 years old when her world crumbled like a house of cards on a windy afternoon in the Texas plains. She weighed 310 kilos, a number she knew by heart because it was impossible to ignore when every movement was a battle, when every staircase was a mountain, when every stranger's glance on the street carried silent judgment. But the number on the scale had never mattered as much as it did on that September day when Derek, the man she had spent the last 6 years with, the man she thought loved her unconditionally, sat down at the kitchen table in their small Austin apartment and said the words that would shatter her completely. "Sarah, I can't do this anymore," he said, his eyes avoiding hers, focusing on some undefined point on the wall behind her. He had that cowardly way of men who don't have the courage to face the pain they're causing. That way of cowboys who shoot from behind instead of facing an honest duel at midday. She felt her heart stop, literally stop for a beat before starting to race, like wild horses galloping across the prairie. "What do you mean?" she asked, though she already knew. She'd seen it coming in the last few weeks, in the distant glances, the excuses not to touch her, the way he pulled away when she tried to get close. "You know what I mean," Derek continued, finally looking at her, and there was something in his eyes that was worse than anger or disgust. It was pity. "You're not taking care of yourself. You're not trying. I need someone who's my partner, not someone I have to carry." The words were like bullets, each one piercing her chest, her stomach, her soul. She knew she was overweight. Of course she knew. How could she not know when stores didn't have clothes in her size, when airplane seats were too cramped, when people whispered as she walked by? But she thought Derek loved her anyway. He had always said so. He had always said she was beautiful. That weight didn't matter. That love was about connection, not about appearance. "You said you loved me," Sarah whispered, tears already beginning to burn her eyes. "You said I was perfect just the way I was." Derek had the decency to look embarrassed, but that didn't stop him from continuing. "I loved you. I still do in a way. But I can't live like this. I can't have a partner I can't introduce to my friends without embarrassment, who can't go for walks with me or to the beach. I deserve someone who takes care of herself." And there it was, the stark truth, without beating around the bush. He was leaving her because she was fat, not because she was bad, not because they fought, not because they were incompatible, simply because her body didn't fit the image he wanted to project to the world. "Then go," Sarah said, her voice surprisingly firm despite the tears streaming down her face. "If that's what you want, go. I'm not going to beg someone to stay when they clearly don't want to." Derek seemed almost relieved, as if he had expected her to fight, to beg, to make a scene. He stood up, grabbed the jacket that was hanging on the chair, and walked to the door. He stopped in the doorway, looked back one last time, and Sarah would never forget the expression on his face. It wasn't sadness. It was liberation. "Take care, Sarah," he said, and then he was gone, the door closing behind him with a final click that echoed in the empty apartment like a gunshot in the desert silence. Sarah sat in that chair for hours after he left, the tears finally stopping not because the pain had lessened, but because there were simply no more tears to shed. She looked around the apartment they had shared, seeing the ghosts of a life she thought they were building together. The photo of them at the Grand Canyon, both smiling, her breathless from the hike, but happy. His mug still in the sink, stained with coffee. His sweatshirt thrown on the sofa. Think about it for a moment. Really think about it. Have you ever been rejected for the one thing about yourself that you knew people judged? That thing you tried to hide, that you tried to minimize, but that was always there, always visible, always being judged. It's a specific kind of pain, a humiliation that burns unlike any other. If you've ever felt this, leave a like now, because Sarah was feeling it 1,000 times over. That night, Sarah ate. She ate as she always did when the pain became unbearable, when life became too heavy to bear without anesthesia. She ordered pizza, ate a whole one by herself. Then she opened a tub of ice cream and ate until she felt nauseous. And then, with a full stomach and an empty heart, she dragged herself to bed and cried herself to sleep. But something happened that night, something Sarah didn't expect. She had a dream. Not a pleasant dream, but one of those vivid dreams that seem more real than reality itself. She dreamt she was standing on a dirt road in the middle of nowhere, the kind of road you see in Western movies, stretching to the horizon in both directions. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and red, and she was alone. But then she looked down and saw that it wasn't her. Or rather, it was her, but different. Slim, strong, muscular, with clothes that actually fit, her hair shining in the wind. And she was running, not walking with difficulty, not dragging her feet, but running with ease, her feet hitting the ground in a steady rhythm, her heart beating strong, but not overwhelmed. And she was smiling. She woke with the sun streaming through the window, the dream still vivid in her mind. For a moment, just a moment, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not hope that Derek would return, not hope that the world would magically stop judging her, but hope that maybe, just maybe, she could become that woman from the dream. Not for Derek, not for anyone else, but for herself. Sarah got out of bed, each movement still a struggle against gravity and her own weight. She went to the bathroom mirror, something she normally avoided, and forced herself to look. Really look. Not with Derek's eyes, not with society's eyes, but with her own. She saw a 32-year-old woman who had given up on herself long ago. She saw years of pain eaten away, years of loneliness chewed and swallowed, years of self-loathing accumulated in every extra pound. No more, she said aloud to her reflection, and her voice sounded strange in the silent bathroom. No more. Have you ever had one of those moments of absolute clarity? Those moments where you know, with every fiber of your being, that something has to change or you will die. Perhaps not physically, but spiritually? Sarah was having that moment. And if you've ever had yours, if you're having it now, then you know that what comes next isn't easy. But share this story. Leave your like, because we need to remind each other that change is possible, no matter how impossible it seems. Sarah didn't have money for a fancy gym or a personal trainer. She was an administrative assistant at a law firm, earning just enough to pay rent and bills, but not much more. So she did what people in the West always did when resources were scarce. She improvised. She started walking. Just walking. On the first day, she managed to get to the end of the block before having to stop, breathless, sweat dripping down her face, legs trembling. 10 minutes, maybe less. But she did it. On the second day, she went a little further. On the third, a little further still. Each day was a battle. Each step a victory against the body that had become her prison. People stared. Of course they stared. A 310-kilogram woman walking down the street, red-faced and sweating, was hard to ignore. But Sarah learned not to care. She put on her headphones, played country music too loudly, and kept walking. And the food. God, the food was the hardest part. Sarah had used food as comfort for so long that she didn't know who she was without it. When she was sad, she ate. When she was happy, she ate. When she was bored, angry, scared, lonely, she always ate. It was her best friend, her therapist, her reward and her punishment. Giving it up was like giving up a limb. But she did her research. She spent nights on her laptop reading about nutrition, about calories, about how the body processes food. She learned that she had been slowly killing herself, spoonful by spoonful, bite by bite, and she decided to stop. Not drastically, not in a way she couldn't sustain, but gradually. She started counting calories, weighing portions, swapping soda for water, French fries for salads. It was hell. The first few days were absolute hell. Her body screamed for sugar, for fat, for that feeling of fullness that made her feel safe. She had headaches, mood swings, moments when she wanted to give up and order a whole pizza. But she didn't give up. Every time temptation struck, she remembered Derek's face, the pity in his eyes, the words that shattered her, and she used that pain as fuel. A month had passed. Sarah had lost 12 kilos. It didn't look like much in the mirror, but she felt it. Her clothes were a little looser. Climbing stairs was a little less difficult. And something else was changing, something she hadn't expected. She was starting to like herself again. Not her body, not yet, but her willpower, her determination. She was proving to herself that she could do something difficult, that she could keep a promise she had made to herself. 2 months. 25 pounds lost. People at work started to notice. "You look different," they'd say. "Did you lose weight?" And Sarah would smile politely and change the subject, because it wasn't about them. It was about her. She had started adding simple exercises to her routine. Squats against the wall, modified knee push-ups, anything she could do in her small apartment without equipment. Her body ached constantly, but it was a good kind of ache. Growing pains, the pain of change. 3 months. 40 pounds lost. Sarah was walking 3 kilometers a day now, sometimes more. She had discovered a park near her apartment, a place with trails that snaked through ancient trees and along a stream. It was her sanctuary, her place of peace. She went early in the morning, before work, when the air was still fresh and the world was quiet. And she thought about Derek, about her life, about who she wanted to be. It was during one of these walks that she realized something surprising. She wasn't doing it anymore to prove something to Derek. She didn't even think about him as much as she used to. The pain of rejection was still there, a scar on her heart, but it was no longer an open, bleeding wound. It was healing, and she was doing it for herself, because she deserved to feel good in her own body, because she deserved to live a life not limited by her weight. 6 months. 70 kilos lost. Sarah was unrecognizable. She had gone from 310 to 240 kilos, and although she still had a long way to go, the change was dramatic. Her face was thinner, revealing cheekbones she didn't know she had. Her arms were toned from exercise. Her legs were strong from all that walking. And she had energy. So much energy, she didn't know what to do with it. It was at this point that something unexpected happened. Sarah was in a clothing store, looking for jeans in a size that actually fit, when a woman approached her. It was an older woman, perhaps in her 50s, with gray hair and a gentle smile that reached her eyes. "Excuse me for bothering you," the woman said, "but I see you walking in the park every morning, and I just wanted to say that you're an inspiration. I'm also trying to lose weight, and seeing you out there every day, no matter the weather, no matter what happens, gives me the strength to keep going." Sarah was speechless for a moment. An inspiration? She had never thought of herself that way. She was just a woman trying to fix her life, trying to feel human again. But to this stranger, she was something more. She was proof that change was possible. "Thank you," Sarah finally managed to say, unexpected tears stinging her eyes. "This means more than you can imagine." This interaction changed something in Sarah. She realized that her journey wasn't just about her. It was about all the people who struggled with weight, with self-esteem, with the feeling of being trapped in a body that didn't feel like home. And if she could inspire even one person, then all the pain, all the sweat, all the tears were worth it. She started posting about her journey on social media. Not glamorous photos, not perfect poses, but the raw truth. Photos of her sweaty after a hike. Photos of healthy meals she had prepared. Photos of difficult moments where she wanted to give up but didn't. And people responded. Comments started pouring in, hundreds of them, from people around the country saying she inspired them, that they too were beginning their journeys, that she gave them hope. "And now I need you to do something. Pause this video for 2 seconds and go to the comments. Write where you are on your own journey. It could be weight loss. It could be overcoming trauma. It could be rebuilding your life after rejection. Write one sentence, just one. Because when you put it on paper, when you declare it publicly, something changes. You are no longer alone in your struggle. You are part of a community of people who understand, who are fighting the same battles. So do it now. And while you're there, share this video with someone who needs to hear this story, with that friend who is struggling, with that family member who has lost hope. Because stories like Sarah's are not just entertainment. They are fuel for transformation. Now back to the story, because the best is yet to come. 1 year, 100 pounds lost. Sarah weighed 210 pounds, and she was a completely different person. Physically, of course, but also mentally. She had a confidence she'd never had before. She looked people in the eye when she spoke. She didn't shrink when she entered a room. She took up space without apologizing for it. And she had discovered that she was strong. Not just physically, although she could do real push-ups now. Could run for miles without stopping. Could lift weights that would have crushed her a year ago. But strong mentally. She had faced her demons and won. It was on a Saturday afternoon, exactly 13 months after Derek had left her, that Sarah was in a cafe in downtown Austin, drinking green tea and reading a book, when she heard a familiar voice. Sarah. She looked up, and her heart stopped. Derek was standing in front of her, looking at her with an expression she couldn't decipher. Shock, certainly, but also something else. Admiration? Regret? Derek, she said calmly, closing her book. A year ago, seeing him would have shattered her again. But now she felt only a slight curiosity, as if he were a character from a book she had read long ago, familiar but no longer relevant. My God, he said, still looking at her as if he couldn't believe his eyes. You look incredible. What happened? Sarah had to suppress a laugh. What happened? You happened, she wanted to say. You shattered me so completely that I had no choice but to rebuild myself from scratch. I decided to take care of myself, she said instead, keeping her voice neutral. I can see that. Derek pulled up a chair uninvited and sat down across from her. You are a different person. I am, Sarah agreed. And it was true. The Sarah Derek had left behind was dead. This new Sarah was stronger, more confident, more complete. She didn't need validation from anyone, especially not from him. I think about you, Derek said, and there was something in his voice that set off alarm bells in Sarah's head. A lot, actually. And I realized I made a mistake. A huge mistake. Leaving you was the worst decision I ever made. And there it was. The things Sarah had fantasized about during those painful first months. Derek admitting he was wrong. Derek wanting her back. But now that it was happening, she didn't feel the satisfaction she had hoped for. She felt only a kind of quiet sadness. You didn't make a mistake, Sarah said gently. You did what you needed to do at the time, and I did what I needed to do afterward. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I was an idiot. I let the most precious thing in my life slip away because I was shallow and stupid. Derek leaned forward, his eyes pleading. But can we try again? Can we start over? Think about this moment. How many times have you fantasized about the person who rejected you crawling back, begging for another chance? It's sweet, isn't it? That taste of revenge, of validation. But here's what Sarah was realizing at that moment, and what you need to understand if this has ever happened to you. Revenge isn't as sweet as you imagine, because when you truly transform, when you truly grow, the person who rejected you no longer matters. If you understand this, if this makes sense, leave a like now. No, Sarah said, and the word came out easier than she expected. We can't start over, because I'm not the same person you left, and honestly, Derek, you're not the person I want. Derek looked shocked, as if it had never occurred to him that she could refuse. But I love you, he protested. I've always loved you. No, Sarah corrected gently. You loved the idea of me, or you loved who you thought I could be. But you never loved me for who I truly was. And now that I finally love myself, I'm not going back to someone who needed me to completely change before valuing myself. She stood up, grabbed her bag and her book. I wish you the best, Derek. Honestly. But my future doesn't include you. And then she left the cafe, leaving Derek sitting alone at the table, just as he had left her a year before. But unlike him, Sarah didn't look back. There was no reason to. Her past was behind her. Her future lay ahead, bright and limitless, and entirely hers. 18 months after that devastating day when Derek left her, Sarah had achieved her goal. She weighed 170 kilos, having lost 140 kilos, through sheer determination and willpower. She wasn't thin by magazine standards, and never would be. But she was healthy. She was strong. She could run a half marathon. She could lift her own weight. She could climb mountains that would have been impossible just 2 years before. And most importantly, she was happy. Genuinely, deeply happy in a way she had never been when she was with Derek, even during the good times. She had left her job at the law firm and become a personal trainer and life coach, using her own transformation story to inspire others. She had clients all over Texas, people who came to her because they saw in her proof that radical change was possible, that you could reinvent yourself no matter how low you had fallen. And she loved that. She loved seeing her clients have those same moments of clarity she had, those same small triumphs that built up to great transformations. Sarah had also started dating again, something she thought she would never do. Not because she needed a man to feel complete, but because she was ready to share her life with someone who valued her for who she was. She went out with a few men. Some were nice, others not so much. But she wasn't in a hurry. She had learned that being alone wasn't a death sentence. It was an opportunity to get to know herself, to become the person she always wanted to be. It was during one of her workout sessions in the park, the same park where she had begun her journey with those painful, short walks, that she saw Derek again. He was sitting on a bench, watching her train with one of her clients, a woman in her 40s, who was on her own weight loss journey. Sarah didn't see him at first. She was too focused on encouraging her client through a series of particularly brutal squats. "You can do it," Sarah was saying, her voice firm but encouraging. "5 more. You're stronger than you think. Your body can do it. Your mind just needs to believe." When the session ended and her client left, radiant despite her exhaustion, Sarah finally noticed Derek. He stood up and walked over to her, and Sarah could see that he wasn't well. There were dark circles under his eyes. He had lost weight, but not in a healthy way. And there was a defeated quality to his shoulders that she had never seen before. "Sarah," he said, his voice hoarse, "do you have a minute?" She wanted to say no. She wanted to say that she had moved on and that he should do the same. But there was something in her eyes, a pain so deep that she recognized it because she had carried the same pain for months after he left her. So she nodded and sat down on the bench, keeping a respectable distance between them. "I messed everything up," Derek began, looking at his hands instead of at her. "Not just with you, but with everything. The woman I dated after you, the one I thought was everything I wanted, left me 3 months ago. She said I was superficial, that I didn't know what really mattered. And she was right." Sarah said nothing. She just waited. This wasn't about her making him feel better. This was about him finally facing the consequences of his choices. "I saw your social media posts," Derek continued. "Your journey, the people you're helping, the life you've built. And I realized something. You didn't become amazing because you lost weight. You became amazing because you found purpose. Because you became the person you always had the potential to be. And I never saw that in you before. I was so focused on the exterior that I completely missed the interior." "You're right," Sarah said calmly. "You lost. But Derek, I didn't do this to prove anything to you. I didn't do it for revenge or to make you regret it. I did it because I finally loved myself enough to fight for myself." "I know," he said, and there were tears in his eyes now. "And that's why I'm not here asking for another chance. I know I don't deserve it. I'm just here to say I'm sorry. I'm sorry for hurting you. I'm sorry for not seeing who you really were. And I'm sorry I had to lose you to learn this lesson." Sarah felt something soften inside her. Not forgiveness, exactly, because some things are too difficult to forgive completely, but perhaps understanding. Derek was human. He had made terrible mistakes, had been cruel in ways he probably didn't fully understand at the time. But he was learning, and that was all anyone could do. "Thank you for saying that," she said. "And Derek, I hope you find what you're looking for. I hope you learn to see people for who they are, not for what they appear to be. Because there are so many incredible people in the world who are overlooked because they don't fit society's beauty standards. And you're going to miss them all if you don't change your perspective." Derek nodded, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. "I'll try," he promised. "And Sarah, you deserve all the good things that are coming your way. All the happiness, all the success, everything. I'm so sorry I wasn't the one who could give you that." He then stood up, and Sarah watched him walk back through the park, his figure diminishing until it disappeared completely among the trees. And she felt something she hadn't expected. Not anger, not satisfaction, but peace. A deep, true peace with everything that had happened, with the person she had become, with the path her life had taken. Now, let me ask you something. Do you think this story is about revenge? About showing someone who rejected you what they lost? Because if you think it's about that, you missed the point. This story is about Sarah finding herself. It's about her realizing that she was worthy of love, respect, and happiness, not because of the number on the scale, but because of who she was inside. Derek coming back, begging, was just a detail, a chapter that needed to be closed. But the real story was Sarah learning that she didn't need anyone's approval to be complete. 2 years after that day in the cafe where Derek first tried to return, Sarah stood atop a mountain in Colorado. She had just completed a 16-kilometer hike, something that would have been impossible 2 years ago, unthinkable 3 years ago. The air was thin, the wind was cold, but the view was absolutely spectacular. She could see for miles in every direction, mountain peaks stretching to the horizon, the sky so blue it hurt her eyes. And she thought about that dream she'd had so many months ago, about standing on a dirt road running, free and strong and completely herself. She had become that woman, not through magic, not through shortcuts, but through hard work, determination, and relentless self-love. She had lost 140 kilos, but more importantly, she had gained a life worth living, full of purpose and meaning and genuine joy. If you've made it to the end of this story, here's what I need you to understand. Transformation isn't about revenge. It's not about proving something to someone who rejected you. It's about proving something to yourself. It's about looking in the mirror and loving the person you see, not because they're perfect, but because they're yours. It's about building a life you don't need to escape, about becoming someone you admire. And yes, sometimes the person who rejected you comes back begging. Sometimes you get that moment of sweet validation. But the moment you've truly transformed, the moment you've truly grown, that validation no longer matters, because you already have everything you need within yourself. Sarah Mitchell lost 140 kilos and got her life back. But more importantly, she lost the need for external approval and gained something no one could take away from her: unwavering self-love. And that, my friends, is the most powerful transformation of all. Now, before you leave, I need you to do 3 things. First, if you haven't already liked this video, hit that button now. Not tomorrow, not later, now. Because that like isn't just a number. It's you saying, I believe in transformation. I believe in second chances. I believe I can change my own life. Second, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. I post real stories of real people every week. Stories that will inspire you, motivate you, and remind you that you are capable of extraordinary things. And third, and this is the most important, share this video. Share it with someone who is going through a difficult breakup. Share it with someone who is struggling with weight. Share it with someone who simply needs to be reminded that better days are coming. Because stories like Sarah's aren't just entertainment. They are tools for transformation. They are seeds of hope that can change the trajectory of someone's life. So share it now. Leave your comment about what this story meant to you. And remember, you are not defined by your failures. You are defined by what you do after them. Sarah proved it, and you can prove it too. See you in the next video. And until then, keep fighting, keep growing, keep believing that you deserve the life of your dreams. Because you do.